Hello folks and welcome to Paddock Pass, your week one testing wrap up from here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. We say week, it's been 3 days, testing seemingly shrunk and reduced with every passing season, just 6 days for the drivers, for the teams of the Formula One World Championship in its 70th year to get used to the cars that will take them towards Melbourne and on to Abu Dhabi at the end of the year for what promises to be, and after this 3 days of testing, really does promise to be a very exciting year. We start down here at Mercedes, reigning world champions, but also because they are Red Bull lot on the way out. They've had a good week. We'll get onto them in a little bit. Mercedes have had a great week, as you would expect. Reigning world champions, of course. They have been in the headlines. Day one, interesting rear suspension that garnered a lot of interest, a lot of headlines. Was that all they had up their sleeve? Oh no, because on day two, out came the DAS system, the dual axis steering system, or as Ted Kravitz termed it, the trombone system, because the drivers can't just turn the wheel left and right. It also now pushes in and out. In so doing, changing the toe on the front wheels. Why? Well, a number of reasons, potentially to aid with tyre degradation, also tyre cooling or heating, and also with straight line speed or cornering once you get actually into the corner itself. Ingenious system. Theoretically quite simple, but as we know in Formula One, never that simple to put onto a car or to replicate. Some other technical bosses in this pit lane thinking it could take as long as half a year, in fact, to get right and to put onto another car. And all this for technology which, according to the 2021 regulations, will not be permissible under those regs. A lot of stories doing the rounds that the FIA have moved quickly to clamp down on it and ban it for next year. That's false. Misleading headlines, certainly misleading stories if that's what it was. Always in the regulations as of October last year that the steering wheel could only do that. Thus, that ain't in the regs. But anyway, that's just the headline things. We haven't even spoken about the car, which looks like it's on rails. It looks phenomenal, as you'd expect from the Mercedes, and it posted the fastest time of this test. It did so at the hand of Valtteri Bottas. We will be speaking to him. It was a 1 minute 15.732, putting it just a couple of tenths of a second off his pole position time here last year in the W10. He said it on the C5 tyre, which is of course the softest tyre, but take nothing away from Mercedes. They are, 1.3 seconds clear of the field on those tyres at the end of week one. Yep. Here's Valtteri.
I think it's been good first, now 2.5 days, and for me, obviously three times in the car, 3 times half a day. It's not a lot, obviously, yet, and we're halfway through the testing, but can see it's been a good feeling. No massive balance issues with the car or things with the behavior. It's been pretty good, and I feel we've made good improvement every day with the car, even though there was no massive problems. But there's always things you're fine-tuning with the balance. Balance through different speeds and types of corners. We've been getting that better and better, more towards where it should be. So actually, end of this morning was already pretty decent feeling. So yeah, I think although some small issues here and there, like yesterday, but that's kind of part of testing and debugging a bit, but in general it's been quite good.
There's been a lot of talk about the DAS, so what's your thoughts about it and how did you like it?
Obviously very, very nice to be only team running that kind of system, so I think it tells something about the great minds our team has, and for sure it's not an easy thing to start making it and designing it and then actually make it work as it is now, and we're still learning about the system and the potential, but I think in some kind of circumstances it can be pretty good, but that will be kind of shown later on in the year in different conditions, different tracks, how it can help us if it can, but yeah, it's quite impressive, but it works all fine. So.
Now, it's not the team that one might expect in second place at the end of testing. It is Alfa Romeo with a day 2 topping time from Kimi Räikkönen of 1 minute 17.091. Yes, that is the next best time after the 1 minute 15.7 of Mercedes. On the C5 tyre, Kimi on a bit of a low fuel run at the end of the day. Indeed, such a low fuel run that later on in the day he ran out of fuel. That is completely as expected. All the teams do it, particularly Alfa. They've done it ever since the days of Sauber, so 20 odd years. For them, in terms of basically running the car down to dry, to empty, so they know where their limitations are. It's been a good start to the test for Alfa Romeo. They have ploughed through the laps, as we said, second quickest overall, and third highest number of laps run, 424, just 70 less than Mercedes. Let's talk to Antonio Giovinazzi, coming into his second season in Formula One. Interestingly, has a lot to prove this year. There are Ferrari juniors waiting in the wings, notably a certain Mick Schumacher, already being spoken about as a potential Alfa Romeo driver for next year. Let's not worry about that now. Let's talk to Antonio about the car, about his expectations for the year on what's been a very promising first few days for Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, I could feel on my neck, it was a lot of laps, but yeah, a lot of data at least. The team is happy. We need to see a little bit more things. We struggle a little bit on the last sector, so yeah, we need to see what we can improve for the next week already. We will have some upgrades already, so we will see if we are going on the right way.
Now you can have, I guess, quite a good idea also comparing with last year, the first week of testing. What are your feelings comparing to then?
Yeah, I think the car went on the right direction. We improved a little bit, still too early, I think, to understand how much we improved. So we need to wait. I think the next test is more ideal to see where we are, and so I will tell you next week.
Will it be a rejuvenated Renault in 2020 with Daniel Ricciardo? All the R's. Third quickest in this first 3 days of testing, a 1:17.102, the first of the teams on the C4 tyre. So that second step in terms of softness and overall speed. You can equate that, we think, to sort of between 3 to 5 tenths of a second. It's never completely clear. They've got an awful lot to prove this year. Last year was so disappointing. They have to give Daniel Ricciardo a car that will make him want to stay, that can prove to him that they've learned from the mistakes of 2019. But even before the season started, Cyril Abiteboul saying that this car is not a car that is exactly what they want. It's very much the product of an old design team that is no longer with the squad. Pat Fry has been brought in, who did so much to turn around the ship at McLaren. Are they getting their excuses in early? Time will tell. They did have problems. They did have issues. Daniel Ricciardo broke down on day 3. They had issues with the floor being damaged over curbs. It's not been plain sailing. And actually you can't read too much into time. So we're doing this in the order of the times as they were set through the week, but you can't read too much into that, as you said, because you've got different tyres being used. You never know the fuel loads. And as we used to say, well, certainly as I've always said in testing, that the thing you can tell the most from is body language. And Daniel Ricciardo, usually so effervescent and bubbly and jovial, quite serious at the moment. On F1 TV earlier today, Rosanna Tennant was interviewing him and said, how's testing going? And he just sort of looked at the floor and then looked up and deadpanned something about the weather. Is that Daniel just saying he's not, he doesn't like testing, or is there something underneath that actually he's not quite as happy with the car as he might be? We spoke to him. We talked to him. Actually, this is an interview from day 2, which was the last time we really got something good out of him. So yeah, Daniel's impressions, third quickest overall, but I'm not convinced that tells the entire story of where they find themselves in the pecking order.
I think I got 40 or something laps, so not massive numbers, but enough to, I don't know, I feel like we come here every year and it's always a cold track and a track we know, so I also don't feel the need to have locked in 80 laps or something this morning. If we did it, so be it. But I think, I don't want to say you only learn so much here this time of the year, but I kind of do feel that way as well. So I feel good enough that with what we've done so far.
Have there been any hiccups at all? Noticed a little bit of damage apparently to the floor this morning, but in terms of run plan, all those kind of things.
Yeah, it's relatively smooth. We got out a little bit late. I think when they fired up, there was just a couple issues, but it wasn't too bad in the end. Then turn 9, I just washed a little wide and caught the kind of second part of the curb. So I think there was a little bit of floor damage after that. So that was me. And then otherwise, pretty smooth. I think at the end we could have probably squeezed another run in, but then there was a little bit of another issue, but nothing too crazy for now. Just I think also try to be careful, not make sure that we don't go out there when there may be an issue. So but it's all good.
How's the balance? How's the feel? And where's it lacking?
Balance. Well, I think first impressions are pretty important. And lap 2 yesterday, we were, not messing about already. So I think the fact I was able to just jump in and go, that was positive. So first impression was good. I think the question is now, once we start to, put the softer tyres on and lean on the car, then that's when we'll, find limitations and stuff. So we'll see. I think we're in a better place than we were, this time last year, but of course we still need to make improvements. But I would say, similar limitations. I think watch the fast cars and their front is just able to kind of hook in a lot. I don't want to say a lot nicer, but nicer through the high speed. That's where they're really strong in the entry of the medium high speeds. And I think that's an area we've worked on a lot. I think we've improved it, but I feel that once we get going, that'll be an area to keep obviously trying to find more from.
P4 for the week on a 117.338 on the C4 tyre. Now, BWT Racing Point, or BWT Racing, whatever you want to call it. They are the pink car. They have been dubbed the Pink Mercedes, the team which has courted, after Mercedes with their interesting steering, the team that has courted the most controversy and the most headlines, created the most headlines of the week, because the car we saw at launch was just last year's car with a new livery on it. The car that rolled out of the garage on Wednesday morning looked, to all intents and purposes, as though they'd taken last year's Mercedes W10 and painted it pink. Like in Alice in Wonderland, painting the roses red. A little bit like that. Lots of questions put in to team's technical director, to Andrew Green. Is it just a pink Mercedes? He admits quite freely, yes, we take the Mercedes power unit, we take their gearbox, suspension, and so had said that they had taken a great deal of influence and had taken a lot of bits from Mercedes to put on the car. As the week went on, the words out of the team, the narrative started to sort of slightly change. We took a lot of photographs of the car and we essentially just copied every element of last year's Mercedes. I say every, that's a slight exaggeration. We copied the bulk of the Mercedes. And when you look at it, front wing, nose, rear wing, air intake, physically, it looks very, very similar. Now, what is under the shell may be very, very different, but in terms of how it looks, how it appears, I mean, it's nigh on indecipherable from last year's W10. Some people said, but of course, you, as Racing Point, or as Force India as was, you were very critical when Haas turned up and essentially took a load of parts off the shelf from Ferrari and ran their car. Said Racing Point, we've not done exactly what Haas have done, and we're still quite angry with Haas about the way that they're going about their relationship with Ferrari. We don't think it's all above board. A little war of words starting to emerge between Racing Point and Haas. Gunther Steiner saying they should have watched their mouth in the first place, shouldn't have been so gobby about us. They've just done exactly the same thing. So it's all starting to kick off. I spoke to Andrew Green about it, and he said, look, we got to about as far as we could have done with our previous design philosophy. And it's a design philosophy which they haven't really been able to change since 2018. Let's not forget the team went into administration halfway through 2018, just at the point when they were having to really lock down what their car would be for 2019. They didn't even know if they'd be on the grid in 2019. And so what they had to do was say, look, we're going to stick with the 2018 tub and we'll just try and evolve the car into 2019. And so it was a bit of a hodgepodge mess, last year's car, really. Could they have taken it much further? Arguably not. They would have still been trying to catch up for everything that happened in their recent past as Force India. So a clean sheet, or at least a clean sheet of tracing paper, digital. Well, let's take the W10, the World Championship car, and let's just design our car based around that. Andrew Green said they finally had the budget to be able to do that, to be able to just plane out, look at a picture and nick it, so to speak. I've always been under the impression that you couldn't really do that unless you totally understood the concept. It's incredible, and it's something we're going to be talking about all the way through the second week of testing, all the way into the season. Who knows where it's going to end up? But one thing's for sure, this car is damn fast, and it's reliable, and the drivers are really happy with it. You're about to hear from Sergio Perez, who can barely contain the smile that is bursting to just erupt from his face. He knows he's got a quick car. They were top 3 the entire week here. 2020 looks like it's going to be very, very good for Racing Point. Checo, they're calling it a pink Mercedes. Does it drive like you imagine the Mercedes would drive?
I'll hope it will perform like their car, but I think it's still very early days. I think we have so many things to go through, a lot of work in our shoulder. All the team is working flat out. What is really good about this season is to finally have a car that is going to be very, very close to what we have in Melbourne. So that's a very positive thing. You know, we can focus and learn so much compared to other seasons where we were always late with our car. I think today we are on the right track, and definitely the car has potential. So hopefully we can start strong.
It's the first year in many you're not behind the 8 ball, but as Andrew Green said earlier today, it is a huge risk to make such a massive departure from what the team's used to this new design, even if it is ostensibly based on what the championship car of last year was.
Yeah, it is, you know, because you are used to after so many years you're used to kind of your design, and to change that dramatically, your car is changing quite a lot. The way it operates, it's very different, so it's a huge risk, but I think it's worth taking it.
Looks like you can't stop the corners of your mouth from turning up. There's a happiness in there. How good does it feel to drive? What's the balance like? Have you found any weak areas yet?
Yeah, obviously there are plenty of things that we gotta work on, you know. I think, as I've said, you know, we have a good base. I think it's something that has good potential. But yeah, we gotta work very hard in the coming days to make sure that we arrive in Melbourne as much prepared as possible.
And you've been up the top for the past 2 days. Are they glory runs or are they real runs?
No, as I say, you know, in this testing, you don't even look at the timing, what's going on, you know, because 10 kilos of fuel is 3/10, and you can be at 100 or you can be on 5, so it's a loss of time to try to figure out, but the most important is that our car is performing well.
5th quickest overall then, the newly named Alfa Tauri, the former Toro Rosso, and it is Alfa Tauri, not Alfa Tauri. Beautiful new livery and trucks and all of that. Crucially, quite an aggressive looking car as well. Clear inspiration from last year's Red Bull, that kind of big forehead at the front and then the steep nose, but it does look aggressive from the front. They've done well this week. Very quiet week for them, actually. They've not made the big headlines. They haven't been dominating the times. They've not been near the bottom either. They've just got on with the program, really plugged away. Their best time of a 1:17.427 on the C4. Slowest of the teams on the C4, but ahead of their sister team Red Bull Racing. We're going to speak to Danny Kvyat on his initial feelings in the car, his initial feelings on this week. And where the team really is going to find itself going into this 2020 season.
I think today felt quite short, just half a day, but still productive. We tried to squeeze most out of it. I think we did a lot of productive laps and high quality tests, trying to cover as many tests and laps as possible at the same time. I think we've done okay for that, and now we just try to analyze all the data and come up with already more solid, let's say, impressions for the next test.
I know that lap times mean nothing and it's about mileage now, but in terms of the initial feel of the car, how does it feel?
It feels okay. It feels in the ballpark. We're still finding obviously the sweet spot. I guess like everyone else, it's normal, and still everyone, I guess, is on different programs. it's hard exactly to say, but the initial feeling is that we made some progress compared to last year. Obviously, it's hard to say how much and is it enough, but still trying to unlock the last bit of potential of the car on both shorter and longer runs.
And early signs from Honda, are they positive?
At the moment, yes. Also, there was a lot of good data, and hopefully we'll be trying to unleash more and more in the next few days.
And then looking into next week, I guess the focus then becomes performance.
I guess a little bit more oriented, but still there will be different programs. I think between the teams, different few lows perhaps. So it's hard to say exactly how much who is opening up their cards. So it's gonna be more relevant, but still not fully relevant.
And so to Red Bull Racing, 6th fastest overall for the week, but that doesn't tell the full story, because the time they set, that overall fastest time, was set on the C3 tyre, so the medium compound tyre. It was a time of 1:17.516. See, a lot of times in the 1 minute 17 is very, very close. It doesn't tell the full story, because Red Bull were, and this is an opinion which is now shared pretty much the length and breadth of this pit lane, on balance, probably and possibly second best team of the week. The car looks hooked up, it looks stable. For the most part, it's reliable. They had an engine change with Albon on day 2. They had a little worry with the power unit there. But other than that, and other than a bit of a moment for Max Verstappen where he went over the curbs on day 3 and broke the rear of the car, not really many issues for them to worry that much about. Certainly, they're in a much better place than they were this time last year. If you remember, many issues with the rear of the car and they didn't get the start of the season they wanted. And Christian Horner has stated in the pre-season that if they are to mount a challenge to Mercedes in 2020, they have to hit the ground running when they get to Australia. Max Verstappen, pound for pound, still, as one would expect, a little bit quicker than Alex Albon. Alex Albon still, he's only had a few races with the team, but very much more a part of it as we begin this year. Some issues with his seat on day 1. He couldn't quite fit in it, and so they had to spend about 45 minutes to an hour just working away on the seat. I joked with him on day 1 that he seemed to have come back with slightly broader shoulders. He's got that confidence now of a driver in his second year with the team. We're going to talk to Alex, actually. Max's media times were just completely rammed, and so he only got a couple of questions, couldn't really get into all that much detail with him. But Alex, we managed to have a really good chat with him, actually, at the end of the test about how he'd found it, what, if any, issues they'd found with the car, and obviously, crucially, what they're going to do, what they intend to do, what the run plan is for week 2.
We were kind of obviously focused more towards reliability and just checking some stuff out. But otherwise, it was pretty smooth. Got the laps in, which is important, and got good baseline for next week.
Cool. Some power unit issues yesterday. How's the drivability today? How does it feel?
Good. I think we definitely made a big step forward with drivability, and especially each time we went out, it was getting better and better. So far so good. And then now just kind of chipping away at the setup as well, just trying to get the car a bit more together. That's the main thing.
Have you been able to do much from the performance aspect in terms of setup work, or is it literally just dialing it in and getting it to where you want it to be for a decent baseline?
Yeah, exactly, and it's also about just trying things which doesn't really work, because it may not work here at Barcelona at 5 degrees track temp, but at other tracks it will. So it's just good to have that run plan where maybe future races you can think back of here and think, maybe that will work. So it's just experience, learning the car, learning what we can do with it, and getting ready for Melbourne.
Is there anything you're not happy with, or anything that's taken you by surprise?
Not really. No, I think at least the main areas which we had to work on have improved. And then, I had a bit of a seat issue, had some holes out of it. But otherwise, if you're complaining about comfort, then it's pretty good.
From the first week then, looking back over it, is the team about where it expected to be, and having been out on track, having seen the others out there, what do you make of them?
Yeah, I think we're looking strong. I think Mercedes are looking strong as well. But I think compared to last year especially, it's a big step forward. So I think we've hit the floor running compared to last year. I think it was a bit of chasing. I mean, I'm speaking from someone who wasn't even here last year, but that's what they told me. So yeah, it's going well so far.
And a big change then from obviously what you had last year at Toro Rosso to come into a season knowing that you could potentially be in a car that's going to fight for podiums, for wins, maybe even for the championship. Has it changed anything in how you approach testing?
It does in terms of team working, I think, as well. Not just that, because this time last year it was more about the driver. I think, especially with Toro Rosso, it's, you know, when you're learning Formula One, everything's quite simple and they make the car good for you. Whereas now it's more like, okay, let's get a baseline. Maybe things, you know, it's more for the team than for you at the minute. Just where the different kind of structure in the team, getting ready for the second week. So it is different, but yeah.
And this week, any big upgrades to be tested or in the offing to get it more towards a Melbourne spec, or is it still going to be this car and just trying to put a bit more setup on it and a bit more performance out of it?
I think bits are coming. I think everyone there's pieces coming, so yeah, it should go towards Melbourne, and that's the goal.
One of, if not the most impressive team, I think, certainly, and a lot of people do, of 2019, McLaren, the way they went about their business, the way they went about their rejuvenation, was noteworthy, was headline grabbing. P4 at the end of the championship. The bromance continues between Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris into their second year as teammates, but can it last if they have a competitive car that is capable of taking the fight to the top three teams? Team bosses think it will. Of course, it's the first full year for Andreas Seidel as team principal, first full year for James Key as their technical director as well. The MCL 35, his first proper creation, and of course the first proper car that has got Lando and Carlos's stamp on it as well. So much expected from them, although they're trying to keep their expectations low and their powder dry. McLaren 7th quickest for the week on a 1:17.842 best lap time on the C3 tyre. They did a decent number of laps, fourth of everybody, 4:23, so just one less than Alfa Romeo. And I think honestly, what's been most telling with this team throughout this week is the fact they haven't made headlines. And in years gone by, they have, but for all the wrong reasons. They haven't been getting the laps in. It's all been going belly up, and it's all been looking terrible. This year, they've been notable by how kind of beige they've been. And that's really good, because it's allowed them just to get on with the program, run their systems check, run to their run plan, not have to worry about anything. They've not had any major tech issues, not that we could really think of, none that really come to mind anyway. It's been a fairly routine 3 days of testing. Get out, put the car through its paces, come in, debrief, get on with it, change driver, do the same again. Bosh! No big headlines, not bottom of the pile, not top of the pile. Pretty much exactly what they wanted to be, exactly what they wanted to see. Let's talk to Carlos Sainz about whether this was in fact as good as they hoped it would be and whether we think it's been.
Carlos, testing's all about mileage and you got plenty of it today, so is that a successful day all round?
Yeah, definitely. The first week mainly is all about mileage and seeing how the car works. We managed to complete a race run without any issues, 160 laps or something like that. It's incredible, no? Very happy. It just shows that the homework and everything that we put in on over the winter is paying off, and we started on the right foot.
What was that early feeling like? I guess I know you can't tell how quick this car is going to be, but did you get a good feeling about it?
No, not any big things apart from obviously a lot of grip here in winter testing with a cooler track, better temperatures. The car feels amazing, you know, we're already much quicker than last year at this point, so obviously everything feels much better, but then you see the lap times of the others and they are all feeling the same, no? So it's very difficult. It obviously feels much better than last year, but where are we going to be? That's the tricky question.
Have you had a chance to look at what everyone else has been doing today?
Apart from the best lap times that they've done, like I've just double checked now everyone's lap times, and apart from all being very tight and very close together, you need to think that here 10 kilos of fuel is 3-4 tenths, and if one team is running 10 kilos more or less, one team is running 50 and the other 30, it's already 8 tenths, you know, so it's going to be tricky to compare and to take any conclusions, but definitely looks like everyone's doing the right steps and everyone's getting quicker every year, and everyone looks quicker this year again.
And so to Ferrari, and not in the position that anybody expected them to be in at the end of week one. It is P8. The first team in the 1 minute 18s, and it's a 1 minute 18.154, and worryingly it's on the C4 tyre, so below Red Bull and McLaren, who were both on the C3s. A quicker tyre, a slower time. Yeah, you can't read too much into it. It's testing, I know. But Mattia Binotto has admitted this week that the SF1000 is not as quick as they had hoped. They do find themselves behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and he's admitted they believe definitely behind Mercedes and critically also behind Red Bull Racing. Last year they were possibly overly optimistic in their expectations at the start of the year. Are they downplaying expectations just so that if they exceed them they'll look better, or is it a real worry going to Australia? Charles Leclerc had some positive things to say about the car, believing that the operating window in terms of setup, malleability to circuits of different types was far wider, far greater with this car than with its predecessor, which would be a positive step forward. But there were issues, there were worries ever since the launch that sticking with the same car concept as they had in 2019, that was so limited by its front end, and sticking with that philosophy would hurt them further down the line, because they'd had to add downforce to compensate for that front end, and adding downforce creates drag, would lose them the one major advantage they had last year, which was their straight line speed. And in a lot of the speed trap times at the end of this week, they were on average over 20 kilometers an hour down on the fastest cars of the day. Are they keeping their cards close to their chest? Are they doing a Mercedes what Mercedes normally do? Not this year, they're flying, but normally just, plough along on that medium tyre, bosh, getting everything just where it needs to be for that first race. Given these guys have run the C4 already and their best time is on that and puts them down in 8th, you'd argue potentially not. Are we putting too much into it? Are we worrying too early? Possibly, but it's only because we want to see these guys up and fighting for the World Championship. Let's hear, though, from Sebastian Vettel, a driver much in demand, much in the headlines. He needs a good year. He needs a good car. Does he have one?
Well, it was the first day or half day in the car, so I think you always step out with a smile. So I was quite happy to be back in the car and to feel the sensation of driving. So that's a positive. I think the car felt good. I think it's doing what we expect to do. Now there's a lot of work ahead of us, trying to understand it further, trying different things. So obviously the more difficult than previous years, I don't know. It always depends what the others are doing. So at this stage it seems that the others are going faster than us. I don't know what's on their agenda, on their program. I think for us it's pretty similar compared to previous years, so not trying to do an awful lot different, but as I said, the main focus is on getting to know the car, doing mileage, making sure everything is lasting, and doing what it should, doing what you expect, and we take it from there.
After the incredibly, I think disappointing is an understatement, of Williams' start to the 2019 season, they were determined that 2020 would be different, and as such, they were out before the light even went green in the pit lane on day one. They were engine running, raring to go. George Russell was holding the thing on the clutch as soon as the green light went. 9 a.m, day one, bosh, straight out. And that in and of itself was a marker of intent from the team, that this is a year about pride and bringing back respectability to the Williams name. They did it. They looked reliable, they looked good. They had a bit of an engine niggle on the last day, but that was pretty much it, I seem to think. I don't recall much else really that went wrong for them during the test. A 118.168 on the C3 tyre. Not the fastest, not the slowest either. P9 for the week. And on the basis of last year, on the basis of where they're coming from and where they intend to go to, that's job done for week one. You cannot ask for any more than that. The biggest thing, perhaps, of all, though, is to speak to George Russell, who, of course, had such a torrid time in his rookie year last season, on whether the car has given him everything that he didn't have last season. Notably brakes that work, but also confidence. And essentially just a Formula One car. because on occasion last year he had something that looked like one but definitely didn't feel like one. There is a feeling down here Williams have turned a corner, as George Russell I think sums up quite nicely here.
First on track, got all the laps we needed to complete it this morning. It was just nice to be driving a car again, and it was a good feeling from the off. The car gave me some confidence to push it to the limits, but ultimately it's not about how it makes me feel, it's about how fast it goes around the track, and that we won't know yet.
And does that give you confidence, sort of having a car that was kind of doing what you were expecting it to do on the first day?
Yeah, definitely. Any driver just wants a car that's predictable, and so far it is predictable. It's day one of testing. It's a cold track here, which means it's nice on the tyres. So we won't really know just yet, but so far, positive signs.
And you were first on track today. Does that give you a boost as well?
Yeah, I think it's always nice to just get out there early to do the job. But I think the main thing is just reviewing how the car's performing, going through all the data. We had quite an extensive aero test this morning, so just seeing how that all performs and trying to improve it for tomorrow, Friday, and into next week.
And so to the final team in 10th place, it is Haas. We've spoken about the reliability this week and really how incredible it was, how bulletproof the majority of the cars were. Haas, on the other hand, 316 laps puts it at the bottom of the pile in terms of the number of laps run. You compare that with 494 for Mercedes as world champions, and that tells you something of the story. Fewer laps even than Williams. Not necessarily all because of issues with the car itself in terms of problems with the car. Romain Grosjean reversed the thing into the barrier at the end of day 2. Kevin Magnussen, lunchtime on day 3, was getting ready to go out for his race run, did 4 laps, hit the curb, got a puncture, off into the barriers, day done for him. So a couple of driver-related errors, I think we can safely say, perhaps, that called an end to their running. 118.380 on the C3 tyre is the slowest of the headline times for the week. They had an awful year last year, didn't really understand what was going on with the car until 3/4 of the way through the season. Very narrow operating window with the tyres. Let's talk to Romain Grosjean, though, about what he's felt in the car this week, whether the issues of last year have been resolved, and whether he feels 2020 will be any better than 2019.
Well, it's been a pretty good week. I've done a fair bit of laps on the car, trying various setups on the car, putting it in every conditions possible. So we will keep doing that, I believe, this afternoon with Kevin. And generally, the reliability has been pretty good. Small hiccup this morning, but it was a tiny thing that's going to be easy to solve. So generally, that's all very positive. Obviously, next week's going to be important. Also, carry on discovering the setups. I don't think we care really much about having the right setup for Barcelona in February, so we're looking at different options. But generally, I'm quite happy with the first week.
And we've had fairly similar conditions, very mild on the track. Has that been valuable to you guys?
Yeah, I think early in the morning it's tricky, and around 10 o'clock, if you want to do a good lap time, that's the time to go. And then 11 to 3 p.m. is quite consistent, which is good. It's conditions that we will have during the season. It's 25, 26 track temp, so that's all right, and allows us to get the best of the conditions.
And anything surprised you this week?
Well, the steering column from Mercedes. That's I guess I'm not the only one, but it's a very clever way of doing it. The rest pretty cool.
So that is your lot from Paddock Pass, your first of 2 for pre-season testing. Now, I know we made a lot at the top of the show about Mercedes being a whomping huge margin ahead of the field, and they have shown that they are very fast, but I don't think they've shown that they're as fast as they can be. Bear in mind, they still haven't shown that they're as quick as they were for pole position here last year. Sure, different time of year, different temperatures and all that, but if they could show that they were up to that pace and their rivals haven't yet, I think there's still some way for the other teams to show their hand. I don't think we've seen everything from everyone. When you look at the long run pace, when you look at the cars out on track, when you talk to the drivers, there appears to be a pattern forming. And yes, Mercedes are still the team to beat, but right up there with them appear to be Red Bull Racing. Ferrari is the big unknown, but they're not near the top two. Are they third, fourth, possibly even lower? Racing Point may just about at the moment slot into that third place. McLaren potentially around them as well. Time will tell though where Ferrari fits into the mix, and even if those suggestions are anywhere near, I should say, close to reality. It's the greatest part of the year. It's always such a joy because you don't know anything until you get to Australia. This time last year, we all thought Ferrari had it nailed. Ferrari had the car to beat. We got to Melbourne. Valtteri Bottas took the victory. So let's not make any predictions just yet, eh? No, let's not. Second week comes along next week, surprisingly enough. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Once again, the teams have just 3 days to get through their programs, and critically, every single one of them will be bringing upgrades, updates, pieces to put on the car. These are basically still just the launch models of the car. They've worked through the basics, they've got their understanding, they've got their baselines. Now it's about performance, now it's about finding speed, now it's about creating the cars that we will see in Melbourne. The most important 3 days are just around the corner. Thanks for following along, guys. We will see you next week here in Spain. For now though, that's your lot.